Okay, so we have a lot of ground to cover in this episode. This is the last episode of the build of this Tsesarevich. All in all, I managed to make 75 episodes. It's more, it's less than I was thinking a year ago, I don't know. So it will be a bit about what I've done for the last step. It will be the second part. It will be interesting to look at what happened after the Tsesarevich was built, what the other navies were building or designing in that period, right after the launching and operational status of Tsesarevich, what the Russians were doing in parallel or right after the Tsesarevich, and so on. And I think a third part of the episode will have a surprise, the surprise I keep talking about, and then perhaps I will talk a bit about the future, what I intend to build next time, because I don't know. I could have many alternatives. In a previous episode I showed you the stash of models, and there is only one thing, one ship that didn't arrive yet, is the Grosser Kurfürst, because the Canada post was on strike until a couple of days ago, and that package didn't arrive yet. But apart from that, I have a lot of kits, and I have from where to choose for the next model. Now, for the last part, of course, I installed these frames, and the boats were installed previously. I installed this last railing, and then the long ones here on each side. This side was the second one that I did, and it went much better than the first one, of course. Yeah, so I don't know. This is what I've done. This is what I've done, and it was a lot of fun. And actually, it took me 1 year, but it didn't take me 1 year like day in, day out, all day long, and each day. And so it was a lot of. There was a lot of interruption. I was very serious in the first few months, and then summertime, I think around June or May, I stopped building. I was having a stash of episodes. I kept publishing, uploading them on YouTube until August, I believe, and then it was a big break because of the moving and so on. And there is another reason why I was so late with this build. But you will find out soon about this one. And yeah, it took me 1 year. Last year on this by this time, because my real time now is before Christmas, just before Christmas 2024. So just before Christmas 2023, I was building the gunboat, the Koreans. You remember this one? Let me pull it here. Yeah, this one was built at the end of 2023, and then the whole 2024 was well, kinda busy with the Tsesarevich. So yeah, a lot of fun, a lot of things to learn, a lot of limited skills that I have. Well, it is what it is, but in the end I had my fun, and that's what counts for me. And I can see there are a lot of viewers and a lot of followers for other channels like David's Ships, that I appreciate so much. And as I said, Many times if you want to learn stuff and to learn serious stuff, that would be a good place to go. And of course Ron Calverley, there is no episode now that I miss, and there is no episode of mine that I didn't talk about Ron Calverley. Great places to go and learn stuff. I don't learn that much. I'm having my fun, and the way I do things, I have enough fun doing doing it this way. But those are very serious channels, and I would recommend them to anybody. The thing is, there are people who watch, who follow these channels, these episodes perhaps, because they are curious about modeling, or because they are curious about how other people do the same things they might be doing in parallel, or I don't know. They want to learn stuff about modeling, that's very legit also. They want to steal the art of modeling, very, very legit, no worries. And there are other people who enjoy, I suspect in Ron Calverley's case, there are people who follow his channel who enjoy a day-by-day story, how the story continues. They don't care too much that Ron put another set of rigging in the famous 47 episodes of rigging that he did for the hood, or he did install a mast or something. There are some people like this, yes, but there are also a category of people who enjoy the story, the things that happen, the things that Ron show during each episode that not necessarily relate to the model building. And this is my style too, I have to say. I interrupt my building, I go on a tangent about history, about politics sometimes, good or bad or ugly. These are my opinions. I try to build a story. I try to build a story because I know some of the people watch this channel or the other channels exactly for the story that I'm building, and well, it is what it is. I know I talk too much, but here we are. Yes. Now let's see a bit what other navies were doing in parallel with the building of Tsesarevich and right after Tsesarevich was built. And I think I'm gonna look at the Russian Navy, the Royal Navy, the British one, the French. I'm curious what the French were doing in that period of time, and I might look at the Germans, the Austrians and the Italians. 1898, I don't think the Americans were doing many things. Perhaps they did. I have my book, I will have to look into that, but the US Navy is not a subject for me in this episode. In 1898, the year this ship was becoming operational. So we'll see what happens with the other navies. So what happened right after the Tsesarevich, or also in parallel with the building of the Tsesarevich? Well, the Russians started to build a new class, the Borodino class. It was composed of 5 ships, and 4 of them were actually ready to go to Tsushima in the spring of 1905. The fifth one, the Slava, stayed wasn't ready, wasn't done, and stayed in the Baltic, and survived to fight in the First World War. But the Borodino class was supposed to be a repeat of the Tsesarevich French design, but as is often the case, somebody decided to mess up with the original design. Let's have an improvement here, let's have a change over there, and by the time they finished the new Borodino class, ships were between 1000 and 1500 tons heavier than the original Tsesarevich. This additional mass, this additional displacement came apparently from an enlargement of the turrets. The Russians wanted larger turrets. It came from the machinery. Apparently the Russian machinery was heavier than whatever the French engineers installed in the Tsesarevich. And it also came from the addition of two casemates, two secondary guns in casemates at the front, at the fore part of the ship, each side, and the hull shape changed. I mean, it was a tumble home hull only from the prow to the secondary battery, and then from the end of the secondary battery to the end of the ship. So whatever it was in between was straight or sloped, not tumble home anymore. So there have been some changes. Also, I could see in the pictures that in the middle of the ship, between the funnels and between the second funnel and the second mast, the Russians built these vertical paravans, vertical steel plate protections, perhaps against smaller caliber hits. Remember, Tsesarevich was quite open between the funnels and between the masts, and in fact in the Battle of Yellow Sea, Tsesarevich suffered a lot from many hits, many secondary hits, small hits. In this the whole midship was devastated, the superstructure was devastated, and being a bit perhaps prescient about all this potential, the Russians built some vertical protections, vertical steel plate protections at the midship. All in all, these all things added to the mass, to the displacement of the original design. And some people consider the Borodino class as being one of the worst battleships ever built. I don't know about that. I know that the water line, the battleships, the ships, they went deeper into the water, deeper by like 3 feet, which tells you something about a miscalculation between the theoretical weight and the real weight, actual weight of the ship. And why is that important? Because the armor plates, which were supposed to cover the water line, they were not at the water line anymore. The armor plates went lower, went down. The water line got up, and whatever big caliber or small caliber shells hit the hull in the Battle of Tsushima, they penetrated because the armored belt was much lower. So they penetrated, and there was flooding, and there was all the bad things that happen for a ship when a big flood happens like this above the water line, just above the water line. So the water line section was not armored anymore, and while they looked impressive in pictures, these ships were very vulnerable. Yes, very vulnerable. So interesting. But the fifth one, the Slava, lived, which is the Glory in English. The Slava lived to fight in the First World War against the Germans. Interesting story. Yes. Now for the French. In parallel with the Tsesarevich, the French were building the Suffren. And this was quite an interesting build, also on a tumble home hull. And the secondary battery, I think they were 6-inch or 6.5 inches guns. They were a combination between single mount turrets and casemates. So this Suffren was built kinda in parallel and influenced by the same idea as the Tsesarevich for the French National Navy. Of course, after that they changed ideas and they went to the Republic class, which was quite different from whatever they built before. Meanwhile, the Germans were building their Braunschweig class, 4 ships. In heating power, they were a bit different from all the rest of the battleships, the pre-dreadnoughts of the time, because the Germans were using 11 inches guns, 280 millimeter guns, and not the usual 12 inches. And they had a reason perhaps for that, but the ships, they look different from Tsesarevich, but in the end perhaps the heating power, the fighting power of the German ships was pretty much equal, maybe even better, to Tsesarevich and Redtvizan and to the Borodino class. I'm not sure about that. I would have to dig more about this and to see as a theoretical exercise how they compare, how they perform against each other. Good condition, good crew, Braunschweig class against good condition, good crew, Borodino or Tsesarevich class. And finally the British. Now the British had their formidable class, and a very lightly modified formidable class gave us the Mikasa, the Japanese flagship in the Russo-Japanese War, and also almost identical design gave the Royal Navy the London class. The London class, I think there were 4 ships. In appearance they were identical to the formidable class, but they say something about differences in the armor scheme. So whatever you see here is the usual 12 inches main battery, and then a lot of 6 inches guns, all of them in casemates. Don't get fooled by the picture, those are not turrets, they are casemates. They are not even sponsoon, they are casemates. So this is the London class, and they were still classified as typical pre-dreadnoughts, but quite shortly after the London class, perhaps the design process started parallel with the London class. The British were thinking about mounting heavier secondary artillery, secondary guns, and they've created what now we call semi-dreadnoughts with the King Edward VII class. But for now, I think the London class would have been the equivalent of the Tsesarevich and Borodinos or something like this. They were all built in the same period of time. Now, at the end of this series, how about I show you the surprise. Of course, these two, you know them from my previous episodes, and there is somebody new in the picture now. Yes, after all, it was a double build. I decided, I think, around the month of April, end of March, beginning of April, to build the second Tsesarevich, in parallel with the first, and to have it paint in the color scheme of what I believe was the color when the ship first went into the water in Toulon in France, just before being sent to Russia and commissioned into the Russian Navy. It was never a parallel build, because the first Tsesarevich, you've seen it in my episodes, and the second one was always at least 3 or 4 steps behind. So every time I did something for the first one, I had to come back a couple of good steps and do the same something for the second Tsesarevich. Well, what can I say? It's been a challenge. These are my first models, real models. I don't know how real they seem to you. They seem to people with a lot of skill and a lot of experience. But for me, I had fun with them, and I intend to repeat the experience with other ships. I will not build a Tsesarevich, not anytime soon, and perhaps never. Never say never, but in truth, I don't feel the need to. I mean, the emotional charge and the excitement of building another Tsesarevich is simply not there. I rushed to finish the second one. You can easily see the frames for the boats here are not even in place, these frames. But it's gonna be left like this. And well, what can I say? This is not a surprise, yes, and there is something else perhaps to say about all this. This series I wanted to not to dedicate, but mostly to remember and to keep in memory those Russian poor guys, even maybe officers or crew, or you know, simple soldiers in the Russian army who died and who were wounded in the Russo-Japanese War. Of course, this is quite a distant event. My grandfather was born in 1909, so his father, my great-grandfather, would have been perhaps, it was his generation who would have been participated to these events. So, you know, when we're talking about our grandfathers, is already past tense perhaps for most of us, but to start talking about great-grandfathers, it's even farther in the past. But we shouldn't brush aside their memory. We shouldn't ignore those events. We should also remember the sacrifices and the sufferings and the lives that were torn upside down, and the families who suffered, and so on in those times. So yeah, I tried to put as many stories as I could into this into the building of these two ships. I don't know, sometimes maybe I was too boring or too insistent or whatever, but I will continue the same way, and I will always punctuate and accentuate the human side of these vessels of the past, the human side of these events, tragic ones. And mind you, now I was building the Tsesarevich. I was talking a lot about Russia and about the Russians, and at some point in the future I will build a Mikasa, also a Trumpeter kit one in 350, but I will have to talk about the Japanese too. And let's take a moment and remember those times and those events and those who were wounded and even were killed on board these ships, and their officers and so on. Yeah. As I said before, the ships don't have flags. I explained my reasons at some point in the past, but it is what it is. Thank you for watching, and I will see you around pretty soon. I guess pretty soon. We'll have to see what's going on. Thank you.